Today, we're diving into the powerful and unexpected story of Rahab, a woman whose courage and faith helped change the course of history in the book of Joshua. Rahab's story is one of risk, bravery, and redemption, showing us that faith can come from the most unexpected places. So let's journey back to a time long ago to the ancient city of Jericho and see how one woman's actions made an incredible difference. Our story begins in Jericho, a fortified city in Canaan. Jericho had high walls, strong defenses, and the people inside felt safe from any invading armies. But outside the walls, a group of people, the Israelites, were camped nearby. These were the same Israelites who had once been slaves in Egypt and had now spent 40 years wandering in the desert. Now, under the leadership of Joshua, they were finally ready to enter the land that God had promised them. Joshua knew that Jericho would be difficult to conquer, so he decided to send 2 spies into the city to get a sense of its defenses. The spies quietly entered Jericho, careful not to draw attention. They soon found themselves in the house of a woman named Rahab, who worked as an innkeeper and lived on the outer edge of the city wall. Rahab was not someone you'd expect to play a role in a story of faith. She wasn't an Israelite. She didn't know much about their God. But Rahab had heard stories of the God who parted the Red Sea, who rescued the Israelites from Egypt, and who protected them in the wilderness. These stories made her believe that their God was powerful, and that maybe he was even the true God. Now back in Jericho, word quickly spread that Israelite spies were in the city. Soldiers came knocking on Rahab's door, demanding to know if she'd seen them. At this moment, Rahab faced a huge decision. She could turn in the spies, stay loyal to her city, and likely be rewarded. Or she could risk everything by protecting them. Rahab made a bold choice. She hid the spies under bundles of flax on her roof and told the soldiers that the men had already left the city. She suggested they pursue them toward the river, hoping to throw the soldiers off the trail. The soldiers hurried off in the wrong direction, and Rahab went to speak to the spies. In a quiet moment, Rahab told the spies about her faith. She said, "I know that your God has given you this land. We've heard what he did for you, and everyone here is terrified. Your God is the God in heaven, above and on the earth below." It was a stunning confession. Rahab, a Canaanite woman, was declaring her belief in the God of Israel. Then she asked for something in return. She said, "Since I have shown kindness to you, please show kindness to my family. Spare our lives when you take this city." The spies agreed. They told her to tie a scarlet rope in her window as a sign. When Jericho was taken, her family would be saved. That night, Rahab helped the spies escape by lowering them down the wall with a rope. She knew the risks, but she also trusted that God would protect her. The spies promised that as long as the scarlet cord hung in her window and her family stayed inside, they would be spared. Rahab watched them disappear into the night, hoping they would keep their word, and trusting that somehow this God she barely knew would keep her safe. Days passed, and then it happened. The Israelites marched around Jericho's walls. On the 7th day, with a final shout and the sound of trumpets, Jericho's walls came crashing down. The Israelites poured into the city, conquering it as they had been promised. But amid the chaos, Rahab's house stood firm. The scarlet cord in her window marked her family's protection, and the Israelites remembered their promise. Rahab and her family were brought out of the city safely, spared because of her bravery and faith. Rahab didn't just survive, she became part of the Israelite community. She joined them on their journey and over time started a family. In fact, Rahab eventually married a man named Salmon, and their family line continued on to include a man named Boaz, who married Ruth, another remarkable woman of faith. Generations later, from this very lineage came King David, and ultimately, Jesus. Rahab shows us that faith and courage can come from unexpected places. She wasn't part of the Israelite people. She didn't grow up worshiping their God. but she recognized something true and good in him and chose to act on it, even when it meant risking her life. Rahab's faith wasn't about knowing everything perfectly. It was about trusting what she knew and acting bravely. Her story also reminds us that God values every person, no matter their past or their background. Rahab was far from perfect, but God saw her heart and used her to fulfill his greater plan. She became a part of his family and even played a role in the lineage of Jesus, showing that no one is beyond the reach of God's grace.